But speaking of sort of the players at Sochaux and having to scout, creatively and diligently, and going into different catchment areas, I think it's probably best that we discuss some of the young players that are at Sochaux now. And funnily, just before we started recording, sort of on the one sheet that Alex and myself have, we listed Bryan Lasme, who is a 22-year-old winger or wide forward. I think it's probably a better way to describe him. And I wrote he's 6'4" tall. I'm interested because typically you don't get wingers who are that tall unless you're playing in Pellegrino Matarazzo's Stuttgart team and you're Silas Wamangi Tukarov, for example. He is a very, very interesting player to watch. Alex, I'm going to let you have the floor for this one to begin with, because you said as well, you kind of picked him out and went, well, I'm also interested. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, so he's... can we just pause also and just say Silas Wamangituka is a beautiful player to watch.
Excellent, yeah.
I absolutely love him, and I'm doing a Stuttgart save on the Athletic, where Ian McIntosh and I are fighting it out, and I'm Stuttgart and he's Schalke. And God, I love Stuttgart. There's so much going on with that team that's awesome. Anyway, that digression aside. So yeah, Lasme he's really interesting. He's a good and assiduous presser. He makes a surprising number of ball recoveries for a wide forward. He likes to start wide, and that can be on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. And he takes up these weirdly flexible positions. So sometimes, if they're building out from the back, Maxence Prévost, the goalkeeper, who is also an academy graduate actually, and would be a very, very solid kind of number 2 for a Premier League side. I'm not sure he's quite good lasme to be a top-level goalkeeper, but he doesn't make very many mistakes and looks pretty solid. So he'll hit it long, and Lasme is almost used as what, again, in Football Manager terms, you'd call a wide target man. So he's there to contest aerial balls, overman the fullback, obviously, because most fullbacks are shorter than 6'4". And then there'll be Sochaux players pushing up from midfield to try and win that second ball. But also, he will start wide and then cut in field. But he'll cut in field in a way that is not like your kind of Iron Robben, I'm in possession and I'm cutting a sort of slight arc to open up a shooting opportunity. He will just run directly into the centre forward position, where the right back then overlaps massively, and it sort of creates this very, very tilty look. This is something he particularly does on the right hand side. On the left hand side, when he cuts in, it is more in a kind of classic inverted winger way. But he's got tremendous. I don't want to say he's got tremendous pace, but his legs eat the ground up. And he has surprisingly astute positional sense in the box for this kind of gangly pace, tool-driven style of player. Like you can see when the ball's out wide, for example, and he's in the centre forward position, he's making subtle adjustments to stay on side, or he's suddenly accelerating to get onto a cross that comes deeper than everyone's expecting it to. So I think he probably ends up as a centre forward, actually. But he's, like you say, what's interesting is that he has this weird accumulation of skills and physical characteristics, which you don't expect to see in a player who is mostly playing as a right or a left winger. It's quite odd, including this ability to, he tackles like a leggy central midfielder, which again really surprised me. It's he's fun. But what do you do with a player like that? That's the weird thing. Is where do you put him? How do you use him eventually?
Yeah, I mean it is a weird amalgamation of skills, as you say. It's a very, very unique skill set, because I like what you said about it's not like an Iron Robben type run. It's a lot more severe than that, isn't it? It's very much a a beeline straight for the centre forward position. And the thing that I quite like about just the sort of the clips that I was watching of him is that whenever he does get in those positions, it's almost as though the rest of the team vacates that space for him because they know how effective he can be in that area.
And the right back's movement, or sometimes even the right central midfielder's movement to fill where he was, is automatic.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it's very much a specific set of movements that occur when the ball is in a certain area, and he's able to do that. The rest of the team fills in around him. And I do think that the ability to make those runs, and because he can cross the ball, he can beat players dribbling, so you can understand why he's a winger. But this is why I think almost if you played him as like a second striker, like a tall second striker who can win the ball in the air but then just surges past people, but once he's surged past people, has the positional astuteness to check that run and to work out where he is in relation to everybody else, because he doesn't just put his head down and go for it. Like, there is a subtlety there once he's in the box. So that's why I think maybe he ends up as a centre forward. But I don't know. I really don't know.
It's such a perplexing one, because obviously not watching it every week, when you do sort of watch it through that lens and you're specifically looking for what he does in that final third, which is good, you see, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, you see there's a little bit of clunky, unrefined dribbling at times.
Yeah.
And sometimes he does telegraph his body movements a little bit, I think. But I think when you are a 6'4" and you're cutting inside, and opposition teams will have done their analysis, exactly what he's going to do, then there is an element of, I know how to stop this if I can get the jump on you, if I can get the run on you. I can see why he would be a good sort of second striker, as you're saying, because obviously he has that presence. But I quite like how I know why he's playing wide as well, because he's good with his feet, and particularly if he's going to get that run, once he's past you essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the recovery in the wide areas. I mean, one of the things that did impress me about Sochaux, and this is based off watching Lasme, but also Virginius, is they do press aggressively out wide, and they target the opposition fullbacks with their press. But if they get beaten, they actually manage to fall back into a defensive shape quite quickly. And I think that the pace of those wide players, and someone like Lasme who's able to do that and occasionally also make a really decent recovery tackle, is one of the reasons why they are able to play quite an aggressive press in the wide areas. And again, that's the sort of, I mean, that is a bit of a Wamangituka skill set thing, isn't it? Because he sort of plays as this weird hybrid, kind of a wing back, kind of a winger role that's again extremely difficult to understand. And sometimes when you have players that are I don't want to say odd, unorthodox. That's a better way.
Tactically grey.
That actually kind of embrace it, like go with it, and think, I don't want to. I think the instinct, even with me, is to kind of think, okay, well, he needs to put all his eggs in one basket. He needs to become an X, a striker of this persuasion, a wide player of that persuasion, sort of a Mandzukic who is a striker but lingers in the wide areas to win aerial balls and then bursts in. I can see him doing that, actually. But maybe the thing to do is to just kind of go, no, he's the chaos element. He's the bit where the rest of the team does kind of function around him a little bit and makes their movements based on where he's just been or where he's going. And because he is difficult to stop, and because he has that really interesting positional sense, that's what makes the team good, that he's not trying to be a specific type of footballer. He's doing what feels right at the time, and is harder to stop because of it.
Yeah, I think probably to sum up, Bryan Lasme is a player who you couldn't easily put into a certain box in terms of on the football pitch, in terms of positioning. I
think you'd need a really large box.
Well, yeah, for starters, you would. And also, I would not be trying to put him into that box myself. I'd need a hand.
Yes.
Because he is a handful. But to sum up, he scored 9 goals. I think 3 of those were penalties in around 1,700, 1,800 Ligue 2 minutes this season, which was, I think, might have made him their top scorer if there wasn't or a striker who got 10, I believe.
Yeah, but he's also, I think he's Ligue 2 top 25 for expected goals and expected assists per 90.
Ah, right, okay. I did not see that. I didn't have access to that for starters, but it's good to know that I feel a little bit validated now.
Yeah. No, I mean he's fun.